All right, let's go back then to our Popcru March story. Now, the police union marched to the union buildings on Friday, raising various challenges facing the criminal justice sector. In studio, we have with us Richard Mamabolo, who's a national spokesperson for Popcru. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you so very much for joining us here on Afro Breakfast.
Morning to you.
Now, as a start, do you think that your march to the union buildings on Friday was effective? Do you think you managed to get your point across on Friday?
Look, one thing that we definitely did achieve is to get our point across. And of course, I think the overwhelming attendance that was there demonstrated that members are really fed up with the status quo. As to whether we think our objectives will be achieved or not, I think that is to be seen. We obviously submitted our memorandums and obviously gave the different departments 14 working days to respond. Now, we are looking into obviously having a response that would obviously ensure that there's a way in which we work together in achieving all these goals that we do want to achieve. And of course, I think the fact of the matter is that there have been challenges that have taken over 9 years and agreements that have been signed which were not implemented for a long period of time. So we hope this time things really change.
All right, so I want to get back to those the implementation of the agreements and resolutions you talk about a little bit later on. But for now, can you just remind us really of those grievances, in particular those that are non-negotiable? You've said that your members are working in unimaginable conditions. You've been quoted as saying that they were left no alternative but to take to the streets. So talk to us about those unimaginable circumstances you refer to.
Look, you know that police officers die on a regular basis. There's been a lot of police killings, yet when you look at the structure of the SAPS, it's such that it's bloated and on top, both at national and provincial levels. There are duplication of roles, yet there are no resources on the ground where police stations are, you see. So a lot of investment has been put into the national and provincial levels, whereas there's nothing that has been invested on the ground. That has led to police killings, of course, because of lack of resources. Now we want to change that within police. We also want to deal with overcrowding and understaffing within correctional services. You'd know that it's got a workforce of 33,000, whilst you've got a growing prison population that grows on a daily basis. We've seen most of our members being attacked, some being stabbed, killed. All those things happen under conditions where we're supposed to have a Department of Correctional Services which is supposed to be rehabilitating all these inmates. So the department has clearly abandoned its core mandate, which is to rehabilitate. We want to change that. We want to ensure that we deal away with the 85% reoffending rate of inmates who are released. And of course, we think that would obviously be in the best interest of South Africa.
Now, you know, when you talk about the issue of correctional services and the overcrowding in prisons, I would imagine that one of your calls would perhaps be for the government to perhaps build more correctional service centers. Why has that not been a call that you've made? I mean, can the government really stop the fact that there are so many criminals and people going into that system in the first place? Have you not called for maybe more of these facilities to be built, perhaps?
We would never call for more facilities to be built.
Why is that,
Instead,
sir?
What we would want is to see the reduction of the current population within our prisons.
Yeah.
And that can be done by various ways. One of our suggestions is that correctional centers should be self-sustainable, in that they would obviously ensure that inmates are skilled. You know, they should obviously produce their own food, produce whatever utensils that they need. For example, that would ensure that they gain certain skills that they currently do not have, which would obviously sustain them after they are released. Because, as I said earlier, that we've got 85% reoffending rate, meaning that those who are released from jail tend to reoffend because they cannot get jobs, they do not have any sufficient skills, and that by its own will deal away with gangsterism within our correctional centers.
Now, you know, you've mentioned the fact that your members were marching for, amongst other things, the full implementation of all the signed agreements and resolutions. Which are those? Take us through some of those that were already signed and agreed to.
Occupation-specific dispensation is one of them, where members were supposed to have been paid out for what is owed to them. That was in 2009. Up to so far, Nothing has been done. In fact, we've been engaging with the department for all these years. Last year we had an agreement where we finally agreed that members would be paid out. Now the payments have not been done in the manner that we had agreed for them to be done. A lot of members are now confused as to how much they're being owed. They don't know how much they're being owed, how much is supposed to go to them. Others have already died, others have retired without getting their funds. Those are some of the challenges. Uniforms. Members have not been receiving uniforms since 2009 as well. You know, so the conditions have really become dilapidated. Promotions as well have not been happening within the DCS, and the shift patterns as well, which lead to some of the breakouts within our correctional services have not been really looked into, and they're currently illegal as it stands.
Now, you know, you've handed over this memorandum of demands to several ministers then on Friday. You know, how were you received, and what was the reaction then?
Well, the reaction was as expected, that they would obviously make commitments, but we would obviously want to see written commitments. We want to see commitments that would ensure that we work collectively towards reaching certain goals. You know, it can no longer be about talk. We want action now. So what we received was rather positive, in that they promised that they would look into all these things, but we want to see real measures being taken in addressing the plight of the challenges of our members.
And what time frame have you sort of given government? I mean, obviously these things cannot be implemented within a week or a month or so forth, but I would imagine in your own minds you've got a sort of a time frame, or perhaps that one that you've put, you know, in your list of demands in your memorandum. What is that sort of time frame that you've given for government to sort of start to act?
We had said that within 14 days we need responses. Yes, 14 working days, and I think we will measure that on the basis of the responses, and as to what action is then taken towards achieving our goals. We do understand that not everything can be implemented in such a short space of time, but there should be measures which we work collectively towards ensuring that all these challenges are addressed.
Richard Mawabula, great pleasure having you in studio with us, and we wish you luck with your demands, and that they are indeed implemented. That's the national spokesperson of Popcru, Richard Mawabula, of course, talking to us about that march that took place on Friday, which we covered quite extensively here on Afro Worldview, and about the implementation of some of the signed agreements and resolutions and the working conditions that the police in particular are pointing to, and those particularly in the correctional services sector. So that is our conversation. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.